Hey, it's Ben, and welcome to the Upgraded Executive Podcast, where my good friend Nick and I discuss the tools, techniques, and strategies that you can use to upgrade your own personal and professional performance. We have recorded the first 10 shows, and we will be releasing these over the coming weeks, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. In this episode, Nick and I are discussing daily routines and what strategies and tools can be used to create positive habits and have the best day possible.
Hey Ben, how are you doing?
Hi Nick, great, how are you?
Yeah, wonderful, thank you. Very good. So
Excellent.
Today we're talking about daily routines.
We are.
And I think this is one of my favourite topics.
Yes.
Because I think it's probably one of those things that, doesn't have to cost any money, and people can start thinking about it now and start putting it in place like right now or tomorrow.
Yes.
So maybe if we just talk through a second, Ben, what we mean by a daily routine. What does it mean for you?
Sure. So it means having best practice, which will improve my personal and professional performance, but mean that I have a fun day, the stuff's easy and I want to do it, but making sure that I have some structure to make sure that I am including the stuff that is good for me and I enjoy doing with consistency.
Yeah, I think I think it's important that you have the consistency and it's something that you enjoy doing. Otherwise, these routines will drop.
Yeah.
And the way that I like to look at a daily routine is think of it as a series of habits that you string together to make one overall routine. So if you think most people will wake up in the morning, they'll go to the bathroom, they then might jump in the shower, they'll then brush their teeth, they'll then get changed, they might have some water, followed by some coffee, maybe some breakfast. So a lot of people already in their lives have a routine that they pretty much do in the same order every single day. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think for me, having a daily routine that sets you up for success is when you start adding other things on to that already existing routine, so that you start to chain habits together.
Yes.
And then chaining the habits together, you're priming your day.
We're going to talk around this in detail. I'm not lazy, but I'm interested in being as efficient with my time for the biggest positive outcome for me. And definitely, like the stuff that we're going to talk around individually, it makes a difference. But if you add them all up, it really compounds, and it compounds quickly. So from a gratification point of view, I've noticed quick changes which are positive almost immediately, but then compounding those over time is really exciting. But I think what we're going to talk about isn't I'm going to spend 2 hours doing this and I've got to change the rest of my day. It's easy, short hacks, and maybe just changing something slightly that I would have already done to give a better outcome.
Yeah. I think if we get a little bit more specific so that the listeners and viewers can relate to what we're talking about, I gave the example of sequencing habits in the morning, and I think building a morning routine is probably the best place for anybody to start, because it's probably the easiest place to start because there's already the basis there of some kind of routine.
Sure.
And actually, if you can build a few more things into that routine, it becomes habitual. And just like brushing your teeth or showering every day, you just do it because it's what you do. So I think there's real power in having a really strong morning routine. And Tony Robbins talks about it as priming his day.
Yes.
So if you think about the things that you do in the morning, that's going to prime your day for success for the rest of the day. So what things do you do in the morning, Ben, that primes your day?
Some of this is from the night before, but one of the things that I do is have an intention of the time that I'm going to wake up in the morning. And this is weird, but ordinarily I'll wake up at that time. So if that's 5 or 5:30, and before I started doing this, I definitely wasn't waking up at that time, and I
Mm,
needed an alarm clock, and I was hitting snooze. But
mm,
my intention the night before is to wake up if it's 5, if I've got some stuff to do in the morning, or
yeah.
5:30. That's my intention,
Mm,
and I naturally wake up at that time, meaning I've got some space to do some stuff that I want to fit in
yeah.
into my day. So that's the
Yeah.
first thing, have an
Mhm.
intention in terms of what time I want to wake up.
Great. And then what are the kind of things you then do in the morning to prime your day after you've woken up?
Sure. So I'm straight into a 15 to 20-minute meditation once I've
Hmm.
done that.
Yeah.
So normally sat upright in bed as opposed to on the floor in the lotus position.
Hmm.
It's normally a guided meditation that I find really relaxing, and that just gets me into the right headspace from the word go.
Yeah. And is there anything that you do then, Ben, around, I don't know, maybe do you take any supplements or any vitamins? I know we've spoken about bulletproof coffee. What
Yeah.
things do you then do after your meditation?
So then I'm mostly fully awake after I've done the meditation. I'm certainly
Mm,
clear in terms of my mind and just feeling really good. So
mm,
I'll then make my bed, and that's just a really quick positive first step
yeah.
in terms of the day, especially when I get back and it's
Mm,
nice and neat. I'll jump in the shower, and I'll have a warm shower to start off with, and I built up to this, but the last part of the shower is cold and normally for a minute.
mhm,
Although I have recently started having a cold shower full stop, which I find really refreshing.
mhm.
And we've spoken about this on the other podcasts. That absolutely gets me in the present. And if I'm feeling slightly sleepy, it removes that feeling more or less instantly.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm focusing on. So I'm focused on my breathing. Um, and I'm telling myself, this feels warm, this feels warm, this feels warm. And I know you do it, and you've done it regularly over quite a long period of time. And I have now as well. And I really look forward to having them. And I totally feel in
Mm,
the present, and I feel really good once I've finished. You know, it's a
mm,
real positive step in terms of the start off my day. Just feels
mm.
really good.
Yeah, I can't say I ever look forward to my cold shower. Even this morning, I was in the shower going, "Oh, okay, I need to turn it cold," and I did because that's what I do every morning. But I'm a big fan of ice baths too. But I wouldn't say I ever particularly look forward to them. So good on you.
I did work on an affirmation and a balance in terms of my
Mm,
psych-k work to install that. So
mm,
I did slightly hack that in terms of I'll really enjoy having a cold shower.
very good. And there is something about a cold shower for me that probably after about 45 seconds, it doesn't feel cold any
Yeah,
longer.
yep,
And there's quite a neat way to hack this, and it's to do 30 seconds warm and then 30 seconds cold, back to
yep,
30 seconds warm, 30 seconds cold. So you get that shock factor happening more often. I will credit the person that came up with this. I think it's a guy called Ray Cruz, and I
mm,
think it's called the Shiver technique. So we can put that in the show notes for anybody that is doing a cold shower already but wants to sort of ramp it up a notch.
yep,
So in terms of developing habits, we've spoken about a routine and a morning routine in particular where you can sequence things together. I thought it might just be worthwhile taking the audience through what I define as the 7 steps to create a habit or a routine.
great.
So I think the first thing is, this is kind of obvious, but you need to know what you want to introduce. So if you want to introduce cold shower or meditation in the morning, or you want to do some exercise, or you want to journal, whatever it is, be really, really clear on that's the thing that you want to introduce. And don't try and introduce too many things at once. So just
Mm,
think of, if you want to introduce things into the morning, maybe just pick 2 things, get those in, make those habitual, but be really clear on what those things are. And then the second point is you need to understand the why behind it. So why do you want to do it, and why is it important to you? And it's really important to write this down, so that if you ever get sticky around the habit, you can, and it's not happening, you can go back and really clarify, is that why strong enough? Okay. And then the third point is, and you alluded to this earlier, Ben, you need to prime the habit. So in the example of a morning routine, what you want to do is that morning routine is successful based on what you do the night before. So if you have your headphones by the side of your bed, if you want to meditate, if you have your gym bag packed before you go to the gym, so that when you wake up, there's no friction. You just get that, everything you need is there. Okay. The fourth point is you want to time it. So if you're introducing new things into your morning, you need to know how long those things will take so that you have enough time to have your breakfast if you have breakfast, or even get dressed. What you don't want to be doing is waking up at the same time and scrambling around in the morning trying to rush everything.
Yeah.
You want to make it visible. So if you've got a set routine, stick it up in your bathroom or your kitchen so that, so you get really clear on what's coming next. Something that is really, really key, and it's point 6, and is to track it. What you want to be doing is tracking how often you're completing that routine on a daily basis. So some kind of tick chart works really, really, really well. Or there are a number of apps that you can use now just to track habits and routines. And then the last point is you want somebody to keep you accountable. Now you can use your partner, you can use your coach, you can use a friend, somebody that you're going to review your completion, your tracking and completion status on a weekly basis. And then you can have a conversation with them around the days you didn't do it and why. Because the why behind that is really important, because then you'll start to understand what is getting in the way of you completing that habit.
Yeah.
So those 7 points, I know we've spoken around a morning routine, but really those can be used to build any habit.
Yep, completely agree.
And aside from building out a morning routine, what other routines could people build into their lives, Ben, that would give them a huge amount of benefit?
So I think this comes back to the first 3 podcasts that are a linchpin in terms of the series. So in terms of how people can reduce stress and get into a state of performance, how they can get better sleep, and how they can increase their energy levels. And again, we're going to say this on every single podcast. That's the trifactor that we really want to make sure that people get right. So it strategies looking at those points that when you compound all of them, have a great productive day that's hopefully fun, it's easier, and one's a lot more productive. So there's lots of different things that we can talk around, that the output is a better night's sleep, more energy, and relaxed in mind, and feeling like they're in performance mode.
Yeah, I think the morning routine works well for people, Ben, because there's a very clear anchor. And the anchor is waking up. We all have to wake up in the morning. So, but what people struggle with is they'll say, right, I don't have time to do meditation in the morning. I'm going to do it somewhere else in a day. Or I don't like exercising in the morning. I'll find somewhere else to do it in my day.
Yeah.
And typically what can happen is those habits never form.
Yeah.
Because there's no anchor.
Yes.
So if people are looking to build routines into their lives, what they want to do is try and anchor it to something that is already existing. So things like a lunch break, and forcing yourself to go outside and have lunch in the sun and go for a walk, or having a set routine that when you walk in through the front door at home, you do the same thing every single evening. And likewise, you can have a nighttime routine where at a certain time, you have to do a series of things to get ready for bed, which then primes yourself nicely for the following morning. So there is a huge amount of things that people can do, but they need to find a way to try and anchor it to something that is existing.
Yeah, really great points, actually, Nick. I think for me, this starts the night before, and sleep is still like the number one for me, that if I haven't got a good night's sleep, then stuff can slip.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really mindful that the next day begins the night before.
Yeah.
So in terms of my intentions, I did have an intention about 6 months ago to really reduce the amount of TV that I was watching, because
Mm-hmm.
that would knock on to what time I went to bed and being wired, and that would impact then with what time I actually got to sleep and what the quality of my sleep was, and knock on to the next day. So in terms of, I've chopped out TV, but I'll go to bed between 10:30.
Mm-hmm.
I'll read, no blue lights, as we said before, and then in terms of the following day, I'd have a shower anyway. So that's an easy hack in terms of having a lukewarm, then a cold shower, or a cold shower completely. So what we're saying to people is, if you have a bath or a shower, that's a simple win, just by changing the temperature.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the bulletproof coffee that we're both massive advocates for, I would drink coffee anyway during the day.
Yeah.
So in terms of mixing it up, again, there's no extra time with that. That's just being conscious about sticking 2 extra ingredients into the coffee. So it's stuff like that to build on what you're saying, but there's no extra time spent in terms of those 2 things, and they make a massive difference in terms of the quality of the day.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Ben. And I think that something else that sprung to mind for me was when I was working in central London with a client, more my consulting background. I was trying to think, how do I get more movement into my day? And it felt like, to me, the walk from the train station to the office was a very long walk.
Yeah.
Okay? And I would quite often jump on the tube.
Yeah.
But what I worked out was going on the London Underground was taking me 25 minutes.
Yeah.
You go down, you queue, you come back out. And the walk was only half an hour. And once I changed my mindset around that, and I guess I had the data points, I was then able to walk twice a day, which was helping me move a lot more, because, the worst thing is when you've got a desk job, you sat down all day. And I think that, to your point, you can make a very small change. And, for an extra 5 minutes, I was walking for a total of an hour every day, additional walking. So if some very small things to an existing routine can provide massive, massive benefits.
Yeah, and we, again, discussed in a previous podcast, one could get off a further tube stop and walk from there. I make a real conscious effort, if I'm going to London now for client meetings, in terms of taking my fold-up bike with me. So I'll cycle to the station instead of driving or getting the bus, getting a taxi. And I won't get the tube anymore. I'll take my bike around London, which is really enjoyable, feels really good, and it's really good quality exercise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit fearful of bikes in London, just from the point of view of it's just so busy. But I do try and walk everywhere as much as possible, and try and avoid the tube, and just get out and stretch my legs.
One of the other things that I do is, and I think we've taken inspiration from a lot of people from all walks of life. I'm a massive Tim Ferriss fan. And a lot of his research and the people that he speaks to talk around meditation, they talk around cold showers, a lot of the stuff that we're talking around. Also positive affirmations. So in terms of, I'm very deliberate in terms of my mindset with each day now, in terms of spending 30 seconds to a minute in terms of what I want the day to look like, which is, I want it to be enjoyable. I want it to be really positive and really productive. So I set the intention. And I can do that anywhere. I can do it in the shower. I can do it getting changed. It doesn't matter. But I'm very conscious to set a positive intention for each day.
Very good. I think something else that works effectively for me in terms of creating consistent daily routines is that sometimes it's difficult to find that anchor, okay? Because your day's moving around, lunch might move around, there are meetings that happen. I find that if I diarise everything, and I follow my calendar to the letter, and I planned out my diary in advance, I start doing the things that I want to do because my calendar's saying that's the time to actually do them. And if you can build in some buffer time in there for when things go wrong, then what you're then able to do is you are then able to start to build habits into your life that are almost pre-planned. So if you went to go out for a walk, or you want to go to the gym at 2:00 in the afternoon, if those things are in the diary, then there's a better chance of those things happening, rather than you just saying, I'll go to the gym at some point today, and it never really happens.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
I think the other thing around consistent daily routines is, we've spoken a lot around looking after ourselves. So, how do we do meditation and cold showers and bulletproof coffee and prime our morning for success? And all of this has a big context around a working day. But we're not just priming ourselves for work, we're priming ourselves also to be present with the family and make right decisions, not only from a professional point of view, but also from a personal point of view as well. And I think there is also something here for the audience to think about in terms of what consistent daily routines can they put in place that does something like shows affection to their partner, that basically enables them to spend more time with their children and help them with their homework. Because life is so busy, and there is a big risk that we wake up, we do our meditation, we do our morning routine, we kiss our wife and our kids as we run out the door to London, and then we get home and it's late and there's dinner to be had. So there's something here around not just looking after yourself, but also the people around you. What other things can you just build in that show a degree of appreciation or enable you to spend time with people who really value your time?
Yes. And again, all the strategies we're advocating people becoming, and we're doing this, a better version of themselves, and to be more present and to have more balance, as well as improving their professional performance. So completely agree. And I think this stuff is helpful to be objective in terms of what's important with life as well.
Yeah. I agree.
Building on your point earlier, I think for me, two things. Again, I wouldn't say I'm lazy, but I like efficiency. And when it comes to food preparation, I am lazy. So I focus on mainly a plant-based diet, and I've got a high-quality blender. So it will take me literally 5 minutes. It's all raw vegetables, and I can make up breakfast, lunch, and an afternoon snack all within about 3 minutes. So for me, that's really quick, minimal preparation time, and it's really simple. So I've removed my excuses in terms of having to buy a huge variety of ingredients and there being a load of preparation time. This is literally as quick as I can probably get it. And I've got a meal plan that is really healthy. And to follow what you said in your book, Limitless, Nick, it makes me feel really good. Post eating it, no energy crashes. So that's quite a big one for me in terms of knowing that what I should be eating, but having a simple routine in place to prep for that.
Yeah.
And the second point is in terms of my day plan, I'll stick my phone on aeroplane mode, and it's normally the task that I don't really want to do is probably the most business critical, and I'll go into deep work mode. And this isn't for the whole of the day, because there's no way that I could keep that up. And it's really important to have conscious breaks. But for around an hour and a half, I'm in deep work mode on that one most important task. And my mindset is, if that's the only thing that I finish today, would I be having a good day? And like I said, it's normally the thing that I probably don't want to do that is the most important thing. But I'm really conscious now in terms of having that number one, and I'm in a really good place if I finish that moving forward. And that's normally by mid-morning, but I'll consciously not look at email. I'll turn off all the apps that I might have ordinarily open in terms of Skype and WhatsApp, as well as be uncontactable in terms of phone calls by putting that on airplane mode.
It's a really important point. Completing your most important task of the day, early on in the day, because generally that's the thing. That's the thing you procrastinate on, and then before you know it, it's 4 o'clock and you have to do it, or you push it to the next day. And that's the reason I've got the Crazy Frog behind me, because it acts as a reminder, because there's a book by Brian Tracy called Eat Your Frog.
Yeah.
And the book's all around, it's all focused on completing that one most important task of the day. And there's a saying by Mark Twain, and I won't get it completely right, but if you eat a live frog first thing in the morning, your day will only get better. So the live frog is your most important task. So every morning I sit down, because generally when I'm working here, I'm facing the other way. So I get to see that picture every morning, and it makes me think, right, what's the most important task? But I think, just stepping back as well, I think the point that you raised was a great one around the batch food preparation. Because I think the other thing that the audience can think about is, what routines do you put in place into your life? Maybe not on a daily basis, but maybe on a weekly basis, so that you're setting your week up for success, not only your day. So whether that be batch cooking on a weekend, whether it be planning your week on a Sunday, whether it be doing all of your life admin on a Friday morning, what things can you put in place over the week that help you on a daily basis?
Yeah. And I love outsourcing. So I've got a virtual assistant who's based in a lower cost part of the world. So anything that ordinarily I would spend time doing in terms of potentially researching or booking a flight or organising a trip somewhere, I've got an assistant that will now do that on my behalf, and they're $3 to $4 an hour.
Yeah.
So I can concentrate on time with family or work or whatever I want to do, but concentrate on much higher value tasks for me.
Yeah, huge fan of outsourcing. Massive fan of that. I think also, Ben, I think there's something here around as well. We're talking about things that people should be doing as consistent routines and habits. So it's very much focused on what they're going to be doing that would be different. I think there's a really important part here, and is for the audience to think about what things they're going to stop doing. Yeah, because we're always focused on introducing new habits and doing new good things, but what are the things that you're doing in your life that you shouldn't be doing? So I love your point around outsourcing, because if there are things that you can outsource, then you should be outsourcing them. But there'll be a whole bunch of other things that you're doing in your life that those are habits you want to remove.
Sure.
And I think that, from a negative habit point of view, I think it's worthwhile just spending a little bit of time to talk around negative habits. And I think that, negative habits are, people probably associate them more with things like eating too much sugar, or not having a great diet, or drinking too much alcohol, or smoking, or biting, people biting their nails, etc. So these are all sort of negative things that, I guess, start with bad habits, but then start moving into the place of addiction.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I would urge people is that generally a sign of addiction is if there is some kind of shame that is associated with the bad habit. So if you feel as though there's a level of shame around a habit, I'd say go and seek professional advice, because there's probably something there that you need to work on with somebody to help to remove that addiction from your life. Because you can do all the positive habits you want in your life, but if there's something there that is very negative, that's going to act as your kryptonite on a regular basis.
Yeah, and speaking from personal experience, there's normally a secondary gain associated with that vice, that addiction. So that's again why it's important to seek professional advice, just to work that through.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not so simple, is it, than just, I'll give up smoking. It's like, what? Okay, that's one reason that I'm doing it, but what are the other reasons? What might have happened previously that I want to hang on to and not stop?
Yeah, I agree, because the risk is that people will often replace one addiction with another. So
Yeah.
they'll stop smoking, but then the sugar intake goes up, or they'll stop alcohol, but then they'll start smoking.
I think the great thing about the stuff that we're advocating is that, again, from personal experience, individually, these have made me feel better. And that is really motivating for installing some other positive, healthy habits. And I found that it's a lot easier to then tweak my diet in a really positive way.
Yeah, absolutely.
To reduce alcohol consumption, or to reduce the amount of television or internet surfing that I previously might have spent a lot of time doing.
Yeah.
So once one begins some of the stuff that we're advocating, some of the things that previously I've struggled with, I've just naturally not got an interest in.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because the things that you're doing that give you the direct benefit of less stress, more energy, better sleep, means that you've got more energy to put into removing some of the negative things going on in life. And just like people can go into a downward spiral sometimes, I see a lot of people are going in an upward spiral because they start compounding. So Ben, one of the things I wanted to share with the audience is something called the Pavlok device, which looks like that. So it's like a watch. What this is, it's something called aversion therapy. So by tapping this, it gives you a mild electric shock. Okay.
Yes.
And it sounds a bit severe, and it's a shock that is enough to make you feel, oh, that's a bit uncomfortable, but not something that is going to make you scream. Okay. And the Pavlok has some really interesting science behind it. And quite often when you see a nice slick website, you think to yourself, is this really a thing? Can you really zap yourself and start to break a bad habit? Okay, so in theory, for instance, where if you're a smoker, every time you take a puff of your cigarette, you meant to zap yourself. And what that does is it tells your brain that there is a negative consequence to smoking, and therefore it lessens the cravings. The Pavlok website says that 80% of people that use Pavlok to stop smoking are smoke-free after 6 months.
Yeah.
Actually, they're smoke-free after 5 days, and they're still smoke-free after 6 months. So that's a pretty impressive stat. Now, I recently gave a presentation to a recruitment firm, and one of the ladies there had a chronic issue with biting her nails. When she had the Pavlok, I saw her 6 days later, and it's the first time she can ever remember seeing the whites of her nails.
Yeah.
Just stopped her biting her nails. I'm starting to see more and more real-world proof now that this works. Yeah. So if you do have some negative habits, then you can use something like the Pavlok device to help teach your brain that there is a negative consequence, which then reduces the cravings. And people are using them now for alcohol dependency. They're using them for sugar addiction. They're using them when they've got a habit of hitting their snooze alarm in the morning, so they zap themselves. Or I think you can put an alarm clock in this, so it zaps you. Now, it doesn't replace professional advice around addictions, but if you feel as though you've got a negative habit that you want to manage, this could be a really great place to start.
Yeah, and it's potentially a really quick hack. I think am I right in thinking it's around $200?
Yeah, it's around $200, I believe. We can put the cost in the show notes, but I think it's I think it's reasonably inexpensive compared to things like hypnotherapy.
Yeah. And it's a lot cheaper than continuing a habit like smoking if it works. Absolutely.
I have a client currently who is about to start using it to see if he can stop smoking. So that'll be another really interesting real world example of, do these things really, really work. And I think from what I can see so far, you take away all like the glossy website and the testimonials, I think in the real world, it absolutely does seem to work.
Yes. And I've also got a Pavlok. I also advocate, well, there's a number of different modalities, but I've said previously, I advocate psych-k in terms of reprogramming to reduce stress or install new beliefs. And we call in psych-k when we've changed a belief a balance. And I did one in terms of not biting my nails, and I haven't bitten them in 4 months since undertaking that balance. So Pavlok's great, and there's some other modalities in terms of changing one's habits that they want to change.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think just because you've got habit doesn't necessarily mean there is some kind of trauma behind the habit. Sometimes it's just become simply a habit. Like you come in from work and the first thing you do is grab a beer from the fridge.
Yep.
Or you are driving your car and you bite your nails. And a lot of these things become subconscious. So I love the idea of being able to use a device or being able to use a methodology such as a balance that actually starts to reprogram the neurons in your brain that changes the habits.
Yes. And the interesting thing is, I mean, these habits are programmed into the subconscious. And if people aren't aware, then it's very difficult to change. But if they are aware and have different options, then they'll know that it's relatively, it's straightforward in terms of changing those subconscious beliefs and installing new habits.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ben, should we do a quick recap on the key things that we discussed today?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've talked around the importance of having a productive day routine.
Yes, I think the morning routine is probably the key place to start and get that built up slowly before you start looking at building in routines into other places in your life, unless they're very small, easy things to implement.
Yep. I said before, for me, it starts the night before as well, in terms of having a good quality night's sleep. And you mentioned about being prepared in terms of what logistically one might need for the following day.
Yes, what I'll do is the 7 steps that I walk through on how to build any habit or any routine, we can pop those in the show notes. But people should use those 7 steps. And by using those 7 steps, they'll be able to build either a string of habits or an individual habit into pretty much any area of their life.
Yep. And we talked around if somebody has a conscious think in terms of what they view as their bad habits or habits that they want to change, and how to reframe those, and then what strategies could be put into place around the new positive belief or habit that they want to install.
Yeah, so they can either use the approaches that we discussed around psych-k, or they could use something like the Pavlok and then sort of actually reprogram the neurons in their brains.
Yeah. But as we said before, there's lots of different modalities. We're not pushing one in particular, but we've both used different ones which we advocate. But there's lots of ones that people can have a look at.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoyed this show. You can find the video, audio, and detailed show notes at www.upgradedexecutive.com. At the end of this 10-episode podcast series, we will send all of our subscribers an exclusive ebook which summarises everything that Nick and I discuss on the shows. Be sure to leave your details on our website. You can also find us on all of the social platforms at Connect with UE.